individually by email afterwards. And please, you will be automatically muted if in any reason you are not. Please try to keep yourself muted so we can avoid any audio issues. Just a little bit about why we're doing this video and why tech is a big topic right now, particularly in agriculture and agricultural development. I don't know if anybody today, for example, the Gates Foundation came out with its goalkeeper report. And one thing they really highlighted in this report was the threat to agricultural productivity, the fact that agricultural productivity levels are so low, particularly in Africa, but in other places, and a real urgency to ensure that people around the world are able to feed themselves and to feed others, and also to get good nutrition. And I think one of the reasons, given this urgency, there's a lot of need to and a lot of interest in harnessing digital tech and other technologies to make sure that, to let farming families be more productive, to connect them with markets, and make sure that they have valuable information about weather and other things so that they can maximize their output. We've also got a proliferation of new innovations and new technologies thanks to powerful microprocessors. There's also growing presence of mobile phones around the world, which makes a lot of tools and instruments accessible to people, though not to everyone, and that's something that we'll talk about. And finally, the need to reach the most hard to reach households out there, especially given the context of COVID-19 recently. I think there was a lot of growing interest in using technology to be able to continue to reach people. So that's kind of the premise that we're working off of. And for those of you who may not be aware, I just wanted to give some quick information about us, about HarvestPlus and about biofortification, for those of you who may not know. Go to the next slide, please, Tara. So HarvestPlus is part of the CGIAR Global Agricultural Partnership for a Food Secure Future. And the basis of what we're doing is to address a big problem, which is micronutrient deficiency, also known as hidden hunger, which is affecting the health and livelihoods of billions of people around the world. Next slide. So what we and our CGIAR partners have done over the last 20 years or so is to develop and deliver what are known as bio-fortified crops. And these crops have been bred to contain higher levels of key micronutrients in order to address the hidden hunger problem. And these are some examples of some of the crops that we have developed with our partners and are currently available in several countries around the world. Next slide. Yeah, and as you can see, in a very relatively short period of time, these crops, over 400 varieties, are now available in a number of countries around the world, particularly in low and middle income countries. There are hundreds more that are also in the pipeline and testing. So it's rapidly growing as a response to hidden hunger. Next slide. And at this point, and this is based on estimates from HarvestPlus itself, almost 13 million households are growing these crops and benefiting from them. And that translates to about 64 million people who live on those farms. That doesn't include many more people who don't live on the farms, but are also eating this biofortified crops through food products. We are looking into measuring that as well. We don't yet have specific figures on that. Next slide. So where are we now, and why are we really interested in harnessing technology? We've gone through a few phases in terms of developing biofortified crops, doing proof of performance to make sure that they actually can be grown, that farmers are willing to grow them, that people actually benefit scientifically from the increased nutritional value. And I think we've reached a point now, as you see on the right-hand side, that we are very much in the process of rapidly scaling this technology. And I think, we're all agreed that digital tech and other tech are going to play an important part in that rapid scaling. And my colleague, Jenny Walton, will be talking a little more about that. Next slide. And ultimately, what we are interested in and what we, are promoting is partnerships, enabling and empowering others at the national level, at the global level, at the local level, to sustainably integrate biofortified crops and foods into food systems. And we'll be talking a lot about that today, not only within biofortification, but in nutrition smart agriculture in general, which means agriculture that is both improving nutrition and improving livelihoods. And that's a key aspect of what we're doing. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ravinder Grover, who is the program manager for the Commercialization of Biofortified Crops program, who's going to give a little bit of a broader overview about what is happening in terms of technology in the agricultural development sector. Please go ahead, Ravinder. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on which part of the world you are. I'm so delighted to be part of this event where we are going to discuss about technology and how it is playing a role as a disruptor, as a force multiplier, and as a change agent. So I think before we go to discuss the role of technology, I will like all of us to take a pause for, say, 30 seconds and reflect. How did you order your last pizza? And it's how many days since you have physically gone to a bank? How did you commute to office today? And how did you survive these 2 years of COVID? And I guess that will make us appreciate that what role technology has played. And is it significantly different from how we were doing things probably a couple of years back? So this is an important area which we are going to discuss today. I'm waiting for my slides to load. Peter, I'm quickly checking if it's visible for everyone because I'm not able to yet see my slides.
Yes, yeah, we're on the title slide right now.
Yes, I'm sharing your slides.
Okay.
Can you see it?
No.
Oh, weird.
You want the next slide? First slide? Okay.
Where it says technology.
So talking about technology, I mean, this is one of the challenges that we talk about always is the connectivity. And that's all the more important and when we go to the hinterland and the challenges that our people are facing. Okay, it's still not visible for me, Tara. Is it fine if I try to share the slides from my end? Yeah.
So let me stop sharing and then I will make you. Oops. And now you should be able to share your screen. There.
Just quickly checking if my slides are visible.
Yes, they are visible.
Okay, thank you very much. So as we were discussing it, technology has changed the way we do things, the way we learn, the way we pay bills, the way we are taking care of our health, the way we are communicating with each other on social media, entertaining ourselves, doing business. It's also disrupted the commercial landscape, as you will all agree. So look at manufacturing, where mass customization, AI, 3D printing has totally transformed the way we are producing goods. In health, AR and augmented reality and virtual reality has transformed the way we are performing surgery. Banks have literally come to our pockets where we have no more needed to go to banks physically and do transaction there. Retail is another segment which is greatly impacted by technology, where the smart inventory management systems, consumer analytics has totally transformed the way we are shopping. It's become more personalized experience. And just to give you an idea, the investments in technology has also grown manifold. In fact, if you see the number of phones which were around 60 million in 2000 have now, there are more than 8 billion mobile subscriptions, those are available. So we have actually more phones available than the people in the world. So this is one of the innovations that have exponentially grown in last 2 decades and have surprised everyone. But how did the agriculture fail? Of course, there had been some challenges in terms of accessibility, affordability of technology. Connectivity was one of the very limiting factors, but this sector has been catching up really well. In fact, the amount of investments in ag-tech and food tech has grown multifold. In 2008, nearly $700 million were invested in ag-tech, and now that number has gone all the way up to $17 billion. So there has been a significant interest in food and agri-tech. In fact, the recent estimates by McKinsey indicate that there's a scope of adding 500 billion to the global GDP just by ensuring that there is enough connectivity that's available in agriculture. So let me start with some of the examples which are from across the world where technology has actually played a role, and how some of the problems related to connectivity, language, and other barriers, these solutions have been able to overcome. Google has tied up with Nurture Farm to come up with this solution which works on mapping the soil organic carbon. And this has enabled farmers to map the soil organic carbon in their soil and make wise choices regarding the kind of crop they want to go, the crop monitoring system, and the inputs they want to be using. One of the other examples that I like to highlight is the FAO intervention in Kenya. As all of us are aware, a couple of years back, this insidious insect, locust, had caused quite a havoc in Eastern Africa and Southeastern Asia. But this has been very well handled, particularly in Kenya, by FAO, where they provided simple GPS-based devices to monitor the locust attacks, and then mobilizing ground teams to go in the target areas and control those. Thanks to these interventions, nearly 4 million tons of cereals were saved in Kenya alone. Likewise, in Mexico, there's a good example of private sector working on the digital technologies, and a good solution in terms of short corn was developed, which was based on data analytics and hybrid breeding. And these varieties of corn are resistant to green snapping and also have been very much in sync with the combined harvesting methodology. So in a turn, minimizing food losses in the field, which has been one of the significant problems in the developing nations. Similar example in Kenya, where use of simple handheld devices have enabled to cut down the repayment confirmation time from 16 days to 2 days. In fact, the field officers in under 1 acre fund have been able to do the whole contracting process in less than 9 minutes. Another example from IFFCO, where this wonderful tool called LeasyScan is enabling to measure leaf surface area and water stress, and then linking it back to the breeding preferences for these crops, and enabling IFFCO to develop varieties which are in a better position to handle the water stress. One of the challenges that has always been talked about when it comes to ag-tech is that sometimes the language becomes a big constraint, and then the connectivity is one of the limiting factors. But this example from Ethiopia indicates where if there is an intent, these challenges can be very easily overcome. This is an example where in mountainous regions, a simple app, which is a multilingual app capable of working in low connectivity areas, is enabling communities to come together and share information with each other to ensure that the nutrition profile of the area is improved. Now, we talked about examples on the supply side, but the tech is equally affecting the demand side. A good example from Haiti, where the World Bank-based intervention is allowing farmers in Haiti to engage a third-party cold logistic provider, which uses the distributed ledger technology to reach out, which enables farmers to reach out now to the buyers in the US and Canada. Earlier, these farmers were forced to sell their produce locally because of the challenges of shelf life and not having visibility of buyers in outside Haiti. Similar initiative in India, and this is again a good example of how governments can, if they focus on digital intervention, can bring a large scale change. is ENAM, where a pan-India electronic trading portal has been set up, which allows for a unified market, allows even a small farmer in a remote place to make its produce visible to a consumer in a faraway urban market and fetch a good price for their produce. So while we have been, technology has been doing really well on these agri-related core areas, also the allied areas like this agri-services has tremendously benefited from technology. And one of my favorite example is from Senegal, where World Food Program, again, an example of a public-private partnership where World Food Program has worked with, just checking if my slides are back.
Yes, they are. Also, Ravinder, you have about 2 more minutes. Thank you.
Sure, sure. So this is another good example in Senegal, where a national insurance company in Senegal has worked out in simplifying a compensation system. Generally, the insurance payments are very cumbersome and take a lot of time, so the farmers do not realize the full benefit. But this index-based insurance system, which relies primarily on the parameters captured through satellite imagery and also through the weather stations, simplifies the process of compensation and makes it real time. So there are many examples across the globe where the basic challenges which were there in taking tech to the agriculture have been resolved by using innovative, simple use of multilingual apps or the voice-based solutions for seemingly complex problems. If you look at, there are a lot of opportunities across the value chain, starting from inputs where sat imagery, weather sensing, and precision farming can solve a lot of crop monitoring and management problems, and going all the way to aggregation, where digital aggregation systems which are supporting traceability are ensuring and fetching good value to the retailers, and all the way and to the consumers, where simple app-based solutions are providing a positive nudge to the consumers to make healthier choices. And I'm sure many of us have those apps which are helping us in finding out the the calorific values of the various foods we are consuming, and then in a way assisting us to find substitutes which are healthier in nature. So as we can see, technology has done wonders for all of us, and agriculture is not far behind. It's catching up really fast. I like to end with one very important quote from Steve Jobs, where he says, technology does not make leaders. Technology only amplifies the true leadership. And I will like all of us to be with this thought that technology is not a product that we are trying to sell. There will be takers for technology only if it is trying to solve a problem. And I guess my colleague Jenny will take you through what all tech tools we are using to amplify our leadership in the biofortification space. And with this, thank you very much. I hand it over back to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Ravinder, and definitely some wise words at the end about what the role of technology really is. Excuse me. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jenny Walton, who's our head of commercialization and scaling at HarvestPlus. And as Ravinder mentioned, she's going to drill down a little bit into specific things that HarvestPlus and their partners are working on in the tech space. Please go ahead, Jenny. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. I'm Jenny Walton, and I'll explain our vision, our strategy, and the executional plan we have at HarvestPlus for digital tools and technologies for commercialization and scale. So next slide. We started this work in 2017, 2018, before COVID, and most of this we're talking about today was just conceptual, and we were having conversations with like high energy tech companies and really like innovative conversations about what we would like to do. But then COVID happened, and then we didn't just like to do it, we had to do it if we wanted to reach our beneficiaries in the COVID non-contact world. And because we had this work in preparation, I'm really proud and happy to say that we were managed to execute our plan in the COVID scenarios. So moving on to the next slide. So what we're talking about is digital transformation of not only supply chains, but the enabling environment that allows us to deliver biofortified seeds, grains and foods to our beneficiaries. And at the very beginning of that supply chain is the HarvestPlus Biofortification Priority Index. And what we have our ambition to do is really revolutionize that to become a predictive model. And if we use all of the data that we collect through digitizing supply chains, we can make a model that can inform donors and governments on how to act differently in the food and nutrition situation, and even offset disasters that we may have seen in nutrition and food security. So when it comes to seed production and seed distribution, this is the actual basis of any traceability system. So it's essential that we get digitization accelerated in that area with some of the partners that we have on board with the meeting today, but going through how we work with farmers from digital extension to how we provide access to markets, and then through to food production and how we work with food manufacturers to help them with quality management systems, to our partners at Food Portal there, and how we work with them on traceability, all the way to the consumer, and then creating demand throughout that supply chain. So next slide, please. I want to talk a bit more about demand creation because the partners that we have today don't really go into this area, but this is one of the areas we had to switch to very quickly in the COVID environment. And when you talk about demand creation, you have to be clear that we're talking about demand with very different stakeholders in that biofortified value chain. So when we talk to farmers, it's very different to what we say to consumers. And then the digital technologies we have in marketing and digital extension to farmers, giving them access and where to buy seeds, but also where to sell their products, so access to markets and digital-based market platforms, to what we say to aggregators and where they can collect products, to how we work with food manufacturers on traceability and how they control their inventories, and then demand creation with consumers. And all this in a digital context through different medium with very different messages. So next slide, please. Traceability is something that brings the entire value chain together, and something that we really need to support all of the people that we work with is understanding why traceability is important. Not only will it reduce the risk of food safety incidents and provides better products for consumers and customers, but it eventually will become a legal requirement. We want to work with our partners in this area more on the incentives to adopt a traceability scheme rather than the legal risk of having to adopt them. And in many cases, we talk about digitization. It can be switching from a way to a way of working. But traceability, most of the partners that we work with and the food businesses we work with have no traceability. So it's not even if they have a paper-based scheme that they can switch over to digital. It's starting from scratch and understanding why traceability is important. And then really important to note that without standards, we know you can't have traceability. So you have to be able to adhere to a standard at every point of the value chain, and use these standards, whether it's seed, grain or food standards. And then importantly, if you have the standards in place, if you have the traceability scheme in operation, you can then certify that a product meets all of those standards, and then you can demonstrate that value to consumers. And an example there of a logo in currently on one of our partner packs in India. So moving on to the next slide, we start talking about data. I think the possibilities around data are the most exciting. And the screenshot there from the Cropin product that we have implemented in several of our markets. It's in digitization, we're collecting data at every single point in the value chain. So whether that's seeds transactions, so who's buying seeds, where's it going, who's growing it, how much are they growing, to who's taking the product, which food products are going into, and then which consumers are buying it. we're able to have the data throughout the value chain with the vision in mind to completely revolutionize and digitize our M&E systems. And again, thinking about how all this data that we're collecting through digital technologies then plows back into that predictive model I mentioned on the first slide. So moving on to the next slide. So this doesn't come without risk. And I think one of the biggest risks that's talked about is the creation of the digital divide. But HarvestPlus are in a really unique position in that we're already talking to the world's most vulnerable people, whether they're farmers or consumers. And we can't scale biofortification without technology and digitization. And in doing this work, we can ensure that the digital divide closes and that we're taking these technologies and innovation to the people that need it most. In many cases, we know that women don't have the same access to mobile phones, they don't have the same access to the internet. And in doing this work, we can work with these harder to reach groups. There's also the issue of, sorry, the slide just disappeared, sustainability. So we have to remember somebody has to pay for technology, someone has to pay for this. So how do we ensure that there's a demonstrable return on investment from the users or the beneficiaries so that they can in future see the benefit themselves and they will continue to pay for the technology that we'll be using, whether it's the software access to the Cropin platform or whether it is a quality management system from the food portal. The other issue is around data governance and how do we make sure that we protect our beneficiaries' data, and how do we make sure that we comply with all of the rules and regulations that are in every country they operate. And we do have in-house experts and understand all of the rules and regulations in this area and ensure that our staff and our people are aware of why this is so important. And then importantly on competition, we're making sure that we work with multiple different partners. There's never a monopoly, and that our beneficiaries and our users always have the access to the most cost-effective solution. And then understanding the cost versus the benefits. So understand what the theory of change is, how this impacts our beneficiaries, and understanding the impact pathways, and always having that cost on return on investment analysis for the users and the sponsors. So moving on to the next slide, and just to sum up there, so digital transformation of staple food supply chains for economic growth, food and nutrition security. So digitization is integral to our delivery model and our scaling strategy at HarvestPlus. To say we can't scale without using these technologies. And we have to continuously plan and work with the best partners, many of whom are here today. And we will use our current reach of 70 million of the world's most vulnerable people to bridge that digital divide. But at the end of the day, we really are in uncharted territory here, and we're going to take a lot of calculated risks. And I'm sure it's really important that if we do fail, we do learn from those failures and we report our learnings and tell everybody. So thanks for being here, and really looking forward to the next stage of the discussion and hearing from our partners and the questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great, Jenny. I do have one follow-up question for you. You brought up the issue of traceability. And I think maybe for those who may not be clear on what that is, basically, I think what we're talking about is being able to ensure where the product is coming, that it is in fact a biofortified product and that it's quality assured, et cetera, and knowing where it's from. You know, in the conversations out there, there's a lot of discussion about the use of blockchain, for example, to do this. I wonder if you could just comment a little more about traceability. Is blockchain becoming something that that can be used in these agricultural value chains to ensure where things are coming from, or are there other options as well? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And blockchain is most definitely a viable solution. And we have already built projects to utilize blockchain in the vitamin A supply chain in Nigeria. It's not expensive. It's not as sort of wild and crazy as people think it is. It's just a way of collecting data in the supply chain in a digital way. But there's lots of different solutions for traceability. Some of them really simple, and one that we're using at the moment with an organization called Food Portal, which is just a really simple way of organizations. Basically, all you need to do is track what comes into your business, whether that's on paper or digital format, and track what goes out, and you hand it on to the next person. And blockchain is just the ledger is distributed and or sort of cloud-based. So traceability is definitely our real next phase of important thinking, and having lots of different solutions that we compare in different countries and value chains.
Thank you. And I think you also brought up an important issue about equity. That is to say, does everybody have access to these technologies? I think that's something that we'll definitely be discussing in our panel discussion later in the session. So thank you very much. So now, oh, by the way, I just wanted to remind everybody in the audience that to please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions for the speakers, and we will pass them along during the session. Now we're going to move to a next section, which is a few case studies of technologies, particularly digital technologies that are actually being used. And ideally, we may also have some demos as well as we go along. Just to really show at the nuts and bolts level what is really happening in the field and what's being applied at the moment. Our first speaker is Morup Namgail. He's the head of Agri-Tech at IFFCO Kisan in India. IFFCO Kisan is a subsidiary of the Indian Farmers Fertilizers Cooperative, and they strongly believe that the 21st Century Farmers Toolkit really goes beyond tractors and cultivators and plows to really tap into a lot of these new technologies. And Morup has a very deep experience in setting up what are called smart farm solutions across India. So very much looking forward to see what he has to share with us from IFFCO. Morup, please go ahead, and I believe you are going to share your screen, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So as Peter said, I just want to add what Peter just said. We are one of the Agri-Techs looking at empowering the farmers through technology, and we believe that 21st century farmers do look beyond these tractors, mowers, and much more beyond that. Just to add to that, I think it's not just the farmers who need to be empowered, but also the practitioners in the agribusiness, which is something that is not happening. So let me just try to share my screen. I'll just give up hopefully will give you an understanding of what we're trying to do here. I hope you're able to see my screen, Peter. May I go ahead?
Yes, that's visible. You can start. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So we are IFFCO Kisan, a subsidiary of IFFCO. I'll just quickly jump on to IFFCO. So we are, IFFCO is Indian Farmer Fertilizer. We're one of the first farmers, first company itself, deeply connected in rural India. We are connected with almost 1/3 of the farmers in India, directly or indirectly through our products and services. So we have a presence, physical, digital kind of a presence across the country. Almost every nook and corner of the country we are present. We have almost 12 subsidiaries who are meant to offer different kinds of services, ranging from insurance to fertilizers, to chemicals, to biofertilizers, to doing some kind of work on the farm development, to all kinds of range of work. So when we look at ourselves, our portfolio, we're doing a lot of things in the rural space and not just selling fertilizer itself. We realized that when we started integrating our systems, by the way, each of our subsidiaries have different systems. Each of our subsidiaries have different sales team and everything. So all are independently working. At some point of time, when we integrated ourselves through a common system, and then we realized, okay, if we want to really empower ourselves, we cannot be working like a one-trick pony. But instead, if we start integrating technologies, knowing each other well, we realized that we as a group became more productive. We as a group became more transparent, became more advanced and much more impactful. This is exactly what we try to do. We as IFFCO Kisan, why we worked on Agri-Tech, we realized that having technology, we started as a farm advisory services, by the way, with with a product name is Greens and Services. But quickly we realized that, okay, only advisories is not going to be sufficient for empowering farmers. We need to do a lot more. And that's why we started working and looking at various technologies. So we realized, as we said, within the group company, the need of the ecosystem is something really important. We wanted to come up with the ecosystem for the agri space in rural India, where we want to open our ecosystem, not just for IFFCO companies or the IFFCO group, but this is for non-IFFCO or like-minded partners, Agri-Tech startup who are doing many other works to join us in the ecosystem to empower the farmers at large. So that's something that we do on the farm advisory service. As we said, we have a couple of products. We offer these services in terms of as a voice and SMS service across the country in local language. So that's one of the flagship product that we started, where we really transcended the barrier of literacy and communication. We also run a helpline just to complete the whole communication loop. We happen to run the Kisan call center, which is one of the largest, biggest call center in India. We handle around 10,000 calls a day, or around crore, 1 million, 10 million kind of calls in a year. So that's the kind of scale of calls that we handle. This gives us the leverage or understanding of the pulse of Indian farmers, what exactly they're thinking. And that helps to build or restructure our product services offering to the farmers. We work pan-India for these services. And likewise, as I said, as technology has really progressed, technology has changed over a period of time, we have also adopted, implemented, integrated such technologies in our space as well. That's one of the tech precision farming secretary is something that I'm going to talk about. We have an agriculture app for the last 5 years, where we have 1 million farmers using this app, which is much more customized. We can actually customize the app as per your profile. So these are things where we handle or support the farmers through virtual support. However, we realize that to actually make an impact, Agri-Tech as such, Agri-Tech to us is something hyper-localization. Hyper-localization in near real time speed. If you can really do that, I think that's how technology really makes an impact at big time. So to do that, it's not just the farmers. A lot of us are working on the side of farmer, that how can we avail farmers with different kind of technology. As earlier, Jenny and Ravinder talked about how technology is really transforming or changing industry by industry, but not much is happening in the agriculture space. The reason why we believe it's not happening is that the technology, or these technology, cutting edge technology, the novel technologies, it's not that it's not available. It's just that the last mile farmers have never been benefited, and not just the last mile farmers, it's the agri business practitioners within this within the space, within the ecosystem. They are also not benefited. They are also not exposed to such technologies. I think these are the two things why agriculture in India is not really, Agri-Tech per se is not really progressing as such. So we came up with a hybrid model where we are offering different set of technologies. For an agriculture app, it's more on the farmer facing app. The feedback that we can take on real-time basis from them. And if the farmers are not able to share those feedbacks, we have backed up with another app, which is for the agri practitioner. So if you're an FPO, you have field executives, we empower them with these technology, and they can, on behalf of the farmers, assist them with different kind of solutions or different kind of queries. If a simple thing like posting a query or a picture on behalf of the farmers. What we also do is we take up forward linkage program. Backward, if through technology and through a support, we're able to do good production. But we realize that end of the day, if we are able to empower the farmers with forward linkage plan, I think that's the best situation that you can do. And if you manage to do that, they're going to stick with you. So that's something that we do. We are a CBBO, which is cluster-based business organization. We have around 35 plus FPOs in one state who we empower, handhold them right from beginning seed to market. And we also take up other similar activities in other states of the country as well. We do have a space of cattle field, which is, we believe that, okay, agriculture, farmers do not just farm, but they're also looking at some alternative practices. Animal care is something that most of the farmers do. There was a lack of, we realized there's a space where farmers are not having this compound feed. That's why we came up with this product. So that's roughly what IFFCO Kisan does. Some of the stats, we are connected with almost 2.5 million farmers across the country who are benefiting through our farm-based advisories, all local language, near real-time basis. We have another 1 million farmers engaged on our app. These guys exchange information with us, our experts, on almost real-time basis. We have another 30,000 plus acres where we have installed what Peter just mentioned about islands of excellence, a center of excellence, where we are trying to generate this farm digital twin, hyper-local data points, which sadly is not really available right now. So in these 30,000 plus acres, we have set up either some kind of remote sensing technology for which we are pulling out real-time data on, and also we have set up sensors, IoT sensors, soil moisture sensor, leaf moisture, a lot of other sensors, all possible to actually get those ground truth data as well. We're also in the process of doing adding one more technology, which is drone space. We're in the process of doing around 3 lakh plus acres of drone space. So that's one of the things we try to not just offer the plain farm advisory service, but the latest technologies which are available in this space, we try to implement them and implement them at scale. So that's what we do.
Morup, just let you have about 3 minutes left. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, right. So some of the activity map where we work with similar interventions. So Bio Fortified, we are very, it's a pleasure to work with HarvestPlus, where we are actually doing this model farm practice in, for millets in 4 states, UP, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, and Karnataka. We want to extend these services beyond this, and hopefully we can take up paddy and millet as well. Likewise, we are actually taking care of taking up other model farming service for other crops as well. A brief about the Bio Fortified project. As I said, 4 states. Just wanted to highlight what's the crop age like. We are able to establish a traceability across the projects, where we have roughly around 1,500 acres of millets being grown in these these states. What I wanted to highlight is that in future, if you look at irrigation sources, the smartphone user capability, we realize that 50% across the in case of Rajasthan, if you look at 70% of the farmers are using smartphones, around 29% not doing it. But in other states, if you look at Maharashtra, for example, we have in Aurangabad and Bir, Aurangabad non-smart users are completely zero. However, in Bir, we have a healthy 90% plus farmers using smartphones. And this is what we believe, that over a period of time, after a cycle of 1 or 2 cycles, rather than deploying our own resources, on-field resources, which adds up to the cost, we can empower the farmers and help them, make them more tech savvy, and they can actually start contributing data points to the project. So we look at the crop age across the states. This is very similar. We are at the stage of harvesting, and yeah, so that's what I wanted to show you. Moving back to the slide, we are anticipating around 1,000 MT of acreage coming out of the project. You can see the numbers on my screen. We are estimating a healthy 17 MT, 7 quintal per acre in Maharashtra. And Rajasthan, because it was on a trial, so the productivity we could not record much, and there was a big issue with on the climate side. Due to incessant rains in Rajasthan, if you guys are aware of, that really hampered our project in Rajasthan. However, we could do very well in other states like Maharashtra and Karnataka. We believe that this has got a good future. We are capable of handling up to 20,000 acres is what we are planning for Bio Fortified feed, and then immediately we know that it can immediately go to 50,000 plus acres. We're looking up to expand this in UP, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Bihar states for each person. How we are benefiting? I think, as I said, it's not just the farmers who needs to be oriented and can be benefited through technology. It's the practitioners in the space, could be from an agribusiness or from an FPO who needs to be empowered with this cutting edge technology. So this is some of the benefits that we offer in such a program, where we orient the farmers on technology and capacity build them on Bio Fortified crops. We offer them farm advisories in voice and SMS. We offer them support from agri expert on almost weekly basis. Our experts will visit there. And then and stuff like leaf color chart, pest and disease guide, and remote sensing and satellite imagery based analysis on weekly basis. Enable this and customize this from geography to geography. This is where we have also trained the agribusiness guys or the field staff to actually use this technology and make it more customized from the farmer's perspective. That is where we've installed the weather station. That is where we have trained these guys to read the remote sensing patterns, and then they can guide the farmers on what kind of actions to be taken. We generate complete traceability right from the beginning, right from the seed to the market. That's how we believe that partners, be it in the forward linkage or the backward linkage space, can really benefit from such an intervention. And all thanks to technology, that's what's making it possible. As I said, 5 major tech overview that we want to highlight is farm traceability. We capture every detail of the farmers, right from the onboarding farmers, their profile, the crop profile, and the farm profile, to every activity on weekly basis on what's actually happening on the farm. We do back it up. These data points, which are captured by the farm, by our executives on field, through the satellite imagery analysis, which is available to us on almost a weekly basis, in some cases every 3-day basis. We're capable of generating the vegetation index, which gives us an indication of where the stress levels are, as Jenny was mentioning. So we are capable of doing that as well. We can also talk about the nitrogen spread. We can also talk about the soil moisture spread. We use this analysis to translate these information into farm actionable advisories for the farmers, where farmers can actually go and see, okay, this is the stress.
We need to wrap up.
All right. So if I may just go ahead, show you the platform, then I'll be done. Is that okay, Peter?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, just to give you a hint of how the app looks like, a quick login. Yeah, and then as I said, we do capture a lot of this is a productivity app as well. So farmers, the executives can go visit the farmers and capture these information. Yeah. So as you can see my screen, we captured these details, not just for the farmers, and about the farm, which is something that is missing right now. We digitally profile them, geofence each farm so that it can be tracked virtually from anywhere across the globe. These are all drop-downs available, so for easy data capturing of the executive. Interesting thing is that the satellite-based imagery or other analysis can be available per farm for the executive, so that they know what exactly has happened, where the action needs to be taken care. And we dovetail these things. We ensure that executive becomes more productive. In case they have any query, they can immediately chat back with the experts who are available 24/7. For during working hours. They can come back, and this exchange of information happens on real-time basis. So that's how we can make it more productive. I'll just take you to the main screen. Once the data is captured, we can actually view on the map itself where exactly are the farmers.
Hi, Morup, I think we've lost your audio.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Right. Here I'm here. This page indicates which farms, where exactly the action is happening. So the every farm executive is supposed to handle around 100+ farmers, and whenever they visit the farm, they will capture the data. They will interact with the farmers and capture some kind of data. So this pops up on the screen, and you know exactly what has happened on which time. And we also and they take up these images. So through an image, we can know that on what activity, what state, what has happened. So this is the beginning of the project when seed distribution has happened. And if you go back, you can actually see what other activities has happened during that. Sorry.
Okay, Morup, I think we're going to have to wrap up at this point.
All right.
Thank you. That's an amazing tool, and that's really fantastic. Thank you for the demonstration. Just one quick question. You did point out obviously the divide in terms of availability of smartphones depending on the area or depending on the farmer. Is this a challenge in terms of getting farmers to participate and to provide data for the system?
Sorry, Peter, I'm not able to. Can you please repeat again, Peter?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
Okay. You pointed out that smartphones, smart mobile phones, are not actually available to everyone. In fact, in some areas, they're not really available much at all. I'm wondering if that's an impediment to involving farmers in the system. Do they have to have smartphones themselves to provide data or get linked to markets, or can you get around that issue?
So I think, yeah, so the whole point of having a tech is that how quickly or how on near real-time basis can we have that interaction between the farmers and the experts. So with smartphone availability, this becomes much more easier. However, the challenge what we saw is that even with the farmers having the smartphone owners, they're not so tech savvy, and so that's the challenge that we found, and that's why we said, okay, we will train these farmers over a period of time with a set of technology, whichever is coming. But at the same time, to do that, we need to have the guys on the ground who can contribute the data points, assist these farmers to become more productive. So it's a journey that we believe. Having a smartphone makes it much more easier, so that we can communicate to these guys on real-time basis and much more in a engaging fashion. But at the same time, the challenge is that the new tools, if it's not easily visible, is this not easy to operate from a farmer's perspective, that's again a challenge even when you have a smartphone. So yeah, so it's a journey that we believe having that hybrid model is actually very important at this point of time.
Great, thank you again, Morup. That's been fantastic. I think in the interest in time, we'll need to move on to our next speaker. So if you could unshare your screen, that would be great. Great, thank you very much. We'll get back to the questions later. Our next speaker is Ekanikpong Ben. He is the CEO of El-kanis and Partners in Nigeria. He's an entrepreneur who works to provide business, digital, and technical support services to the agricultural sector and food value chain in Nigeria. And just want to make sure, Ben, you're there. Great, we've got your presentation up. And you're going to be talking about the Bio Fortified Project mobile app and how it helps farmers as well as value chain actors to link up and do business. Please go ahead, Ben. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I welcome everybody to this webinar on harnessing tech in nutrition smart agriculture. I'll be taking you on a rundown on how Bio Fortified Project mobile solutions is supporting farmers to optimize their production, mostly farmers that are into biofortification, that are cultivating biofortified crops, the vitamin A maize, vitamin A cassava, and potato and other available crops that have been biofortified to support the health of the country. So I welcome everybody. Just like Peter said, my name is Ekanikpong Ben. I'm the CEO of El-kanis and Partners. So what we do at El-kanis, we create intelligent and interconnected data platform that support rural farmers and organizations to digitize their operations from farm to fork. And we also leverage near real-time farm data and actionable insights to make effective decisions that support farmers increase their productivity and also help them to be sustainable. We also facilitate and support partnerships and coalitions to improve farmers' access to services and markets to over 250,000 rural farmers in Nigeria. We also work with several other development partners like the USAID and other international development agencies to support farmers. So on this webinar, we'll be talking about Bio Fortified Project mobile solution and how it can strengthen the nutrition smart agriculture for a healthy Africa. Let's move to the next slide, please. Next slide. All right, so the platform overview. What does Bio Fortified Project does? It connects actors in the biofortified supply chain to bridge market and information gap. So what this does is most of the farmers that are interested in cultivating biofortified products, they don't have access to seeds, they don't have access to the supply chain, like the HarvestPlus and other supply chain partners. So that's what Bio4X does. It creates this connection between actors, the suppliers, the input suppliers, the government agencies, and also the market. And it also facilitates and encourages the growth of vitamin A maize and the A cassava value chain. So what this does is the platform supports farmers. It supports the growth of this value chain sector. That's the vitamin A maize and also vitamin A cassava. So the farmers in the rural areas, the consumers in the urban, they can also meet on the platform to interact. So the platform also stimulates digitization strategy to improve transparency, efficiency, competitiveness, and sustainability of VAC and VAM food crop in Nigeria, and also supports VAC VAM production. That's VAC, that's vitamin A cassava, and VAM is vitamin A maize production as part of the strategy to improve transparency. So when we talk about transparency, you know, for example, if I take maize as an example, you know, when you look at maize, you can't really differentiate between standard and the Bio Fortified maize. So, but the platform will support planters, farmers to know where to buy. So we'll have all the input suppliers registered. We know that they are verified, authenticated before they can now be onboarded on the platform. So farmers that are buying from the platform could know that, oh, we are buying the original and main seed. So let's move to the next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So what are the functionalities of functionalities of the platform? What it does is on the platform you have these functionalities, the activities. Once you download, which I'm going to explain in the next slide how it works. So it supports farmers with production and yield information. So on this platform, farmers, once the day you plant, you put it on the platform on the app. It keeps track on the day you need to apply fertilizer, the day you need to harvest, and every other information a farmer needs to know that's a good agronomic practice is on the platform. So it supports farmers to know the yield information and also the production information. And it also creates this marketplace. It creates a market linkage to facilitate Bio-fortified trade relationship between farmers and external markets through e-commerce channel. So what it does in this regard, as an input supplier, you're also on the platform. You can display your seeds, your seedlings, the approved fertilizer, the approved chemicals. You can bring it up on the platform, which support farmers to buy and apply on their farm. And it also creates contact with input supplier. It creates this connection between farmers and input providers for ease access to input and Bio-fortified seeds and seedlings. It also creates these contacts between support service providers and also the farmers. So the likes of the Ministry of Agriculture. Recently, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture launched a policy on National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Policy. That's the NATIP 2022-2027 edition. So how this works is, for example, if there is any incentive for farmers that are into Bio-fortification, so farmers can have access to like grants and loans and maybe trainings and maybe workshops that is being offered by government. They can have access to it from the platform, from Bio4X platform. Then it also creates this support for bulk purchase of Bio-fortified products from farmers. And another challenge most of these farmers have is once they harvest their products, they don't have access to market, they don't have access to most of these major manufacturers. On Bio4X as a platform now, it will offer farmers the opportunity to sell their products. It will offer farmers to sell their products and also showcase what they have to producers. And the best thing that happens on this platform is that it has the IVR, interactive voice response aspects, whereby farmers in the rural areas, you know, someone might ask, how will a rural farmer operate this mobile app? So it has an option where you can call, it's called the IVR, where you can call So you can call and reach out to your farmers, reach out to your contacts, reach out to HarvestPlus, reach out to ministry, reach out to input suppliers. So let's move to the next slide, please.
Hi, Ben, you have two minutes left.
Okay, right. So how it works, how the platform works. So you, as a farmer, you register, you log in. You can also call the IVR number, which will be shown on the next slide. And you can also, once you download, if you have a smartphone, once you download the Bio Fortified X from the website, you can register. Once you register, you can now use it, and it's easy to use. It's self-explanatory. Use the activities to monitor your crop. You can also request and access services from service providers and input suppliers. You can also request for support. You can buy and sell on the mobile app. Then for input suppliers, if you're an input supplier, you register, you bring up you have to be verified as a Bio Fortified input supplier. Once you're verified, we onboard you on the platform. Then you can bring up display your products, your seeds, your vitamin A maize, vitamin A cassava, and any other seedlings that you have. Once you put it on the platform, we match you to the farmer that requests for your service. You get paid for the service you provide. Then it supports both the input providers, input suppliers, and the farmer. So for support service providers like the HarvestPlus and ministry and other support service providers, once you register as a support service provider, we match your service to a farmer's request. If it has any commercial value, you get paid, and you also earn rating from the farmers. For food processors, like the major food processors and food manufacturers in the country, once you register, you can order for bulk products, like maybe you need up to 100 tons or 10,000 metric tons of vitamin A maize or cassava. Once you put it on the platform, from the back end, we now check for all the farmers that planted maybe the specific product you're requesting for. Then we now aggregate it and send it to you. Then payment, you make your payments. We now send the payment to the farmers, and your order is being delivered. Let's look at the next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So on the next slide, we're talking about the IVR.
1 minute, 1 minute.
All right. So that's the IVR there. We almost done. So on the IVR, it connects rural farmers to service providers. Just like I said, we've developed it on the four major languages. We have it on the Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, and the Pidgin English, so as to serve those in the rural areas. And for you to get in touch with this, just press the numbers on the slide there. Once you call the number, it routes to a service provider or an input supplier which meets your demand. So the last slide, Bio Fortified X, the last slide, please. All right, so we really want to talk a little on the Bio Fortified X, the IVR rather. The IVR is an interactive voice response platform that really supports farmers in the rural areas. You know, a lot of farmers, up to 80% of these farmers, they don't have smartphones. They can operate smartphones, but they all have phones. They have the conventional phones. So on the IVR, you just call a particular number, just like you call your spouse or you call your cousin or your friend. This number is being routed. Once you call the number, just like your customer service number, it routes you to a service provider. So you press 1 if you want to talk to a service provider. If you press 2 if you want to buy a Bio Fortified seeds. You press 3 if you want to sell your products. You finish harvesting and you're looking for markets. Once you press 3, it routes you to the commercial manager, who will now ask further questions and now connect your product to maybe like the producers and the manufacturers or even consumers. Then if you want to talk to the service providers like the HarvestPlus, if you press 5, it routes you to a support service provider. So this has been really tailored to support farmers in rural areas. And
thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Peter.
That's a fantastic tool. Thanks for sharing. I have a quick question for you. Came from.
All right.
How do you get market value chain actors to know about this and to participate in it? I mean, we talked about the farmers, but what about everybody else? How do you incentivize them to take advantage of this kind of tool?
All right. So you have most of these input suppliers that they're on the other end looking for customers who are mostly the farmers, and also have farmers on the other end looking for service providers and input suppliers. So what we do is we create awareness. We use the 8 model, the awareness, interest, and doable. So these are the input suppliers. We have town hall meetings, we do publicity, we are on air. We also have workshops and seminars on how they can scale their sales through getting farmers. So we already have the pool of farmers on the platform. It's just for the input suppliers to come get advantage of them. We do this through publicity. We do this through radio advertisement. We do this through social media. And also we have town hall meetings where we invite these input suppliers to come and participate on the program and the platform so as to sell their products.
Okay, thank you. And somebody has a question, is BioFortX available on the Play Store? I don't know if you have an answer for that or not.
All right, so you get it from our website. Very soon we're going to launch it on the Play Store, but biofortx.com, just log on to biofortx.com. You click on download. It's similar, just like getting it on a Play Store.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben. That was really an amazing tool. Okay, we're going to move on now in the interest of time to our next speaker, which is Jonathan Lehe. He's the Chief of Strategy, Partnerships, and Innovation at PXD. He's got more than 10 years of experience in global ag, health, and education, designing and implementing programs to scale up access to critical services. Welcome, Jonathan. Please go ahead and tell us about what PXD has been doing in Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thanks to HarvestPlus for putting together this webinar and convening this great group of partners. So my name is Jonathan Lehe, and next slide. So Precision Development, or PXD, is a global nonprofit organization serving more than 7 million users in 9 countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America with mobile-based digital services. So our mission is that we provide actionable information and other scalable, cost-effective services to people in poverty to empower them to sustainably improve their well-being, with a very broad mission of ending information poverty. Now, that vision is not specific to the agriculture sector, but you see on the next slide, the majority of our work is in the agriculture sector. So our core services are digital agricultural advisory services using SMS and voice. So this is providing agricultural advice to smallholder farmers to help them improve their yields and improve their agricultural incomes. So as you can see on this screenshot here, this is our two-way SMS-based service in Kenya. Our services vary a bit from country to country, but there are some key features that are similar in all of them. So one is that these are low-tech services that farmers can reach on simple phones. So as Peter mentioned earlier, in the countries that we work in, the majority of smallholder farmers don't have access to smartphones, but they do have simple phones. And so we're focused on really reaching farmers where they are and on the simple technologies that they have access to. These services are customized, so we collect data from users to understand the user better. And so the advice that we give is based on these user characteristics and as customized as possible. These services are on demand, so farmers can reach out to us via SMS, or they can dial into an IVR hotline, but they are also, we also push content to farmers. So we push SMS, we push automated voice messages so that the content that we provide to them is timed to the agricultural calendar. So the farmers get the advice that they need when they need it. These services are very low cost, so less than $2 per farmer per year, and they're provided throughout the entire agricultural season. They're free to the user, so none of our users have to pay anything to access these services. And some of the key features that we think are important in designing these services are that we really integrate the concept of human-centered design, user feedback, and continuous experimentation and iteration and improvement. So we're constantly doing A/B tests to test out different design features and improve the quality of our advice and the quality of our service over time. so that it gets better and better at reaching the users. So next slide. So as I mentioned, the majority of our services for smallholder farmers are targeted at helping them increase their yields and incomes. But in late 2020, at the height of the pandemic, we partnered with HarvestPlus to conduct a pilot in Pakistan with the goal of increasing adoption of two different variety of zinc fortified wheat seeds, Akbar 19 and zinc 16. And this was a service designed to complement our standard agricultural advisory service for wheat farmers in Pakistan. So in Pakistan, we have a total reach of about 1.5 million smallholder farmers in Punjab province of Pakistan. This pilot was with a subset of those, about 100,000 farmers in 5 districts. And like I said, these are smallholder farmers, so an average land size of about 4 acres per farmer. So that put this at about 400,000 acres under cultivation. And so the intervention that we piloted was an SMS and voice-based service in 2 local languages in Punjab province, highlighting the different benefits of adopting these zinc biofortified seeds. So the nutritional benefits, which are many, which you see here, but also the yield benefits. So these seeds can help farmers improve their yields, and they can also help to increase the crop disease resistance. These seeds are resistant to wheat rust and other diseases. So there are actually lots of different benefits to the farmer of adopting these seeds. And so we designed different messages to highlight these different benefits that farmers could receive. And these messages were integrated throughout the agricultural season, sort of combined with the different agricultural advice that we were already giving to these farmers. Next slide. So here are some of the results of this pilot that we conducted. So 59% of the farmers that we surveyed in the sample adopted these zinc biofortified seeds in the 2020-21 season. And this was a big increase, an increase from only 9% in the previous season. Now, I should mention the caveat that this was not conducted as a randomized controlled trial. So this is not a causal impact. And there were potentially some other factors that could have led to this increase, most notably that there was also an increase in the supply of these seeds available from 2020 to 2021. But we still see these results as very promising, that this tool was able to substantially increase farmers' knowledge that these seeds were available and led to a big increase in farmers' adoption. Additional research is still needed to measure the causal impacts on farmers' health, farmers' yields, and farmers' incomes, which we are now in discussions with HarvestPlus to continue to do in Pakistan and in other settings. One of the challenges that we had in this pilot was reaching female farmers. To some extent, this is particular to Pakistan. Our sample in Pakistan was more than 90% male farmers. In Pakistan, there are limitations on female farmers' ability to be the official landholder. And so the farmer databases that we get from the government of Punjab are predominantly men. But this is also a challenge that we see in other geographies as well. Not as extreme as Pakistan, but in all of our geographies, to be honest, the majority of our users are men. And so we've tried lots of things to encourage female farmers to use the service and to adopt our recommendations. So we leverage self-help groups to reach women. We encourage female farmers to refer their female family members and neighbors, through word of mouth. We've also conducted a lot of experiments on how to reach female users. So for example, using female narrators in our voice calls has been shown to increase female participation. We've encouraged male household owners to share the content with their wives, to listen to voice-based messages together with their wives when those messages come. So we've made a lot of progress in terms of reaching women farmers. In this pilot,
3 minutes, John. 3 minutes.
Okay. In this pilot in particular, there were also some issues around availability of the seeds. So they were not available in all locations and all the farmers that we were trying to reach, and so that might have been a barrier that that limited adoption from being even higher. We also saw a lot of variability in the price of these seeds on the market. So, there's still work to be done on both the demand and the supply side to achieve adoption as high as we would like to see. We really see this as a huge potential to scale in Pakistan and beyond. So there are about 6 million wheat farmers in Pakistan. So there's huge capacity for the supply of biofortified wheat seeds combined with this sort of digital tool to increase adoption to really reach scale in Pakistan and all over the world. So I think that's my last slide. So I'll wrap there and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's, again, really interesting results from that pilot study. Definitely, as we pointed out, the use of SMS is very interesting, given that a lot of farmers may not have access to advanced phones. So that's very interesting. One question that's come in is, while we're introducing these technologies and trying to promote them, obviously farmers are already interacting typically with, national agricultural extension services, things like that, who help and provide assistance. I'm wondering, what's the interaction there? Like, how do we engage governments and authorities to make sure that they're on board with these technologies and also possibly help promote and adopt them? And I'm wondering if there's any lessons from your experience in Pakistan or elsewhere in that respect.
Sure. So we work very much on a partnership model, and some of our most important partners are governments and the national agricultural extension programs that they run. So in this example in Pakistan, the way that we have reached 1.5 million farmers in Punjab is through the government of Punjab's agriculture department. They had a database of farmers that they had reached with other types of services, input subsidies, in-person extension, and so forth. And so we worked with them to design this digital extension platform to complement their in-person extension program. So this work has been hand in hand with the Punjab government ever since it began in 2018. And this is very similar to the way that we work in other countries. So our biggest program is in Odisha state in India, where we work with the state government to design a digital extension program. And we have just now in the first half of this year, we handed that program over. So that was a build, operate, transfer, where over the span of about 4 years, we built that service. We scaled it up to about 3 million farmers in that state of India. And we've now just handed that over to the government. And so now the government is funding and operating that service independently. So that's really the model that we see. We don't see this as a replacement of in-person extension. We see this as a complement that we implement through, in partnership and through the government. And really our long-term business model and sustainability model is for these governments to pick up these programs and fund them and scale them up so that they can continue to be free to the user.
Yes, and I think you brought up another important point too. In fact, I was on a webinar or watching a webinar recently, and someone who works for Hello Tractor, I don't know if you're familiar with them, that do fractional, tractor rentals to smallholder farmers. One of the points he made was farmers like to do business with people they know, may not necessarily be able to easy to engage them through the cloud. And I think you're right that, that involving the extension services, making sure they're on board is really critical. So thank you for that. Well, thanks again, Jonathan. Without further ado, we're going to switch gears now that we've seen some great demos here, to our panel discussion, where we're going to kind of go from talking about all these great things out there, these tools, to really looking at, how do we bring it down to earth and kind of ground truth it? How do we really make sure that they are accessible, affordable, useful, and beneficial, and also respond to the true demands of smallholder farmers as well? And I wanted to introduce our panelists first. Thandiwe Chidavarume, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Thandiwe. She is the national coordinator of a nonprofit called Women and Land in Zimbabwe, that's involved in economically empowering rural women through supporting women's agro and non-agro-based activities, particularly also helping them in terms of responding to climate change shocks and building platforms for, you know, social and economic dialogue on women's land rights in particular, which is a big issue in Zimbabwe. I'm hoping that Thandiwe is online. Yes, great, fantastic, you're there. I also wanted to introduce Lynn Pinto, who is the Strategic Account Manager at Cropin Technology Solutions, which is another technology vendor, and she'll be telling us a little bit about what they do. And then finally, Jawoo, who is the Senior Research Fellow. He's leading digital agriculture activities at the CGIAR, of which we are a part. I'm sorry, Jawoo, I didn't get your title exactly correct. Maybe you can clarify when we talk to you. And he's going to be able to talk a little bit about lessons learned from a lot of different research that's going on within the CGIAR about applying technologies to agriculture. So welcome to all three of you. And, you know, we've looked at all these demos right now and different technologies. And I wanted to start off with Thandiwe on this question. You know, the first question being, you know, what are we really responding to smallholders' biggest problems? You know, are we really keep making this a demand-led process, so to speak? So from your experience, you know, what have we learned? What do farmers really need? What are their biggest challenges, and how tech might fit in? Big question, I know, but I'm trusting you to lead us off on that. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Peter. Before I start talking about the biggest challenges that the smallholder farmers are facing, I would want to start by saying that the bulk of the smallholder farmers are women in Southern Africa. So when we speak about smallholder farmers, we are speaking about rural women farmers in Southern Africa. So the biggest challenges that they are facing, I will speak of four. The first one being the weak land tenure systems in Southern Africa, which makes the papers that the smallholder farmers are holding not bankable. They cannot use these papers to go and present them to financial institutions, to companies that are producing inputs for them to get loans, to get inputs for free, not for free, to use and then pay back when they harvest. So this is one of the biggest challenges the smallholder farmers are experiencing, that is weak land tenure systems, which limits them in terms of access to support for land-based investments. And these land-based investments, they include use of technology, including digital tech. And then the second one is linked to the first one, of the weak land tenure system. We have limited access to inputs. If you don't have financial resources, it means you can't access enough inputs to make you very effective when you are producing. And then we also have market distortions. We don't have access to good markets. We produce food, very good food, good crops, but in terms of accessing the markets, because we don't have these digital techs for us to use to market our produce, we don't have good markets for our produce as rural women farmers or as the smallholder farmers. And then the other big monster that we are facing is the climate crisis, which has been hitting the Southern Africa part so much. Of late, we have been receiving cyclones, droughts, and the rainfall pattern has changed. We now sometimes the people who assesses the kind of rainfall a season is going to have, they tell us that we are going to have a normal to above normal rainfall, and we'll be happy thinking that we'll be able to produce. But the distribution of this rainfall, of these rains, are not good to the extent that we have a crop which takes 90 days to reach maturity, but the distribution will be for 30 days. then the 60 days we don't have rains and the crops get wilted. So this is one big monster that is affecting the smallholder farmers. And then the last one that I want to talk about is the limited access to technology because of poor financial resources, because of poor network coverage, to the extent that we can't even use the simple social media platforms like the WhatsApp because of poor network coverage in most of the rural areas in Southern Africa. So what we can do, what I think will be the best way to engage or to empower the rural women is to find solutions to how they can access finance, how they can access inputs, and how we can partner with the companies that are providing network to rural communities to make sure that they put boosters, they put infrastructures in the rural community so that as rural women farmers, as smallholder farmers will be able to use these mobile apps that have been presented by former presenters, which are very good, which can improve the kind of agriculture that we are doing. This can also benefit us as rural women farmers in terms of accessing good quality markets for our produce. Thank you.
Fantastic. It sounds like you're making a very strong call for more cell towers as well around the country. No, I mean, again, I think Thandiwe, you bring up a very important issue. You can keep your camera on if you want, your video on if you want, by the way. You know, in terms of the, like we mentioned before, the digital divide, in your work, when you are encountering areas where that is the case, where it's pretty much darkness when it comes to being able to access, what sort of approach do you take? I mean, what is your strategy in that respect when your women farmer beneficiaries are not really able to take advantage of those kinds of connections, particularly in terms of reaching suppliers and potential markets and things like that?
So what we have done, we have got what we call the Rural Women's Assembly groups with some Rural Women's Assembly information centers where we put all our information at one center, and we have what we call the group facilitators who are responsible for collecting information about which farmer is producing what, how many tons, and this information is kept at the information center by this facilitator. And we also have tried to link with the buyers. Like, for example, we are producing sunflower. There's this company which wants to buy sunflower for processing, stock feed and cooking oil. So they have to get in touch with the facilitators. If the network is good, they'll be able to communicate either through SMS or through phone call. It's either way. It's either the facilitator phones or the company phones back to try and negotiate in terms of price, in terms of everything. But in this kind of negotiation, it is where we find the farmers being shortchanged because they don't have much option. They don't have choice in terms of selecting the best buyer. They end up just giving anybody who has come by. Then I also forgot to also indicate when I was talking about the challenges being faced by smallholder farmers, which I said the bulk of which are women. We also have a challenge similar to the Pakistan women, where we have our women not owning land. We have less than 20% of our women in Southern Africa owning land, which means that in terms of ownership of land, women are still lagging behind.
Okay, thanks. And I think, I think we'll return to the issue of engaging and empowering women through tech in a little bit, but that's really helpful. Thank you very much. I think that's actually a really good segue to Jawoo, who, to sort of open the discussion, which actually I think everybody can get involved in is, what are the key lessons that we're learning through field work and through research about introducing tech solutions to smallholder farming communities? What is the evidence telling us, and what should we be keeping in mind as we go forward with these kinds of projects? Jawoo, maybe you can start off by letting everybody know exactly what you do and what the CG is up to in the States. And then maybe perhaps share some examples and lessons learned from your body of work. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I'm a senior research fellow at International Food Policy Research Institute. I'm based in Washington, D.C., where the IFPRI headquarters is located. And I'm also the part of new CGIAR research initiative called Digital Innovations, and I'm currently leading the initiative effort across CGIAR centers. So one of the things we do, and the main thing we do in the initiative is researching pathways for digital innovation and digital tools and technologies to accelerate the impact on food systems and also accelerate the food system transformation. So this is kind of our ongoing research topic. Yeah, one other thing I also wanted to mention, just following up on Thandiwe's kind of opening remark, this rural connectivity is a really difficult problem to solve. And Peter, it's not just adding more cell tower will solve all the problem. Just how we get there is really problematic. The costing of installing cell towers in rural area costs like 2 to 3 times more than urban areas, whereas the revenue for companies to collect or get from those rural areas is just 10% of the typical rural urban area. So it's really difficult to convince cell phone companies or telco partners to cover the area just for the sake of expanding the network coverage. So this is exactly where public sector really need to step up, and there should be very creative public and private partnership need to be developed. And there are whole, even in the US where I'm based, the whole the very difficult political discussion going on of who is going to fund that and cover the cost, and how we make sure the benefits are shared. It's a really difficult conversation. And I think it's even more important for a rural area where climate crises are just getting severe and severe, and where people can really benefit from accurate climate forecast and weather forecast information. So I think this really adds more urgency to bring more attention from public sector to engage with private sector to support private sector to expanding that network coverage. Another thing we've been also seeing is that this lack or limited coverage of network and connectivity in rural area also hamper our researchers, ourselves, and also even just sector in general, our understanding of how people are using this technology, how they could use this technology, those limited coverage, limited connectivity introduced by us. We often just go to the area we feel comfortable going to. We speak to people we are already familiar with. So that kind of unfortunately introduced bias on the research findings that we generate, the kind of data we collect. A few years ago, we did a kind of SMS-based survey in Tanzania to better understand farmers' adoption of technologies. And at that time, we thought because the cell phone ownership in Tanzania is more than one, meaning there are more than one cell phone in theory distributed across the population of Tanzania. However, when we actually collected data, analyzed data, we realized that because of the limited coverage in rural area where we couldn't really reach through SMS survey, we ended up having really nonsensical research findings. So we couldn't really utilize that in the research. So I think we just had to be really cognizant of the limited coverage. We are missing a lot of rural population, especially women population who are not, has less access to technology and cell phone and services. So that should be really top of our mind whenever we use this kind of technology to reach and reach out to the people. And also the human-centered design contact, the PXD presentation Jonathan mentioned, that's really critical. One of the partner we recently engaged with, they are operating in Southern Africa using kind of the market information service through app that they have developed dedicated app, but they keep finding people not using the app, they keep reaching out and interacting with the service provider through WhatsApp because that's what they feel comfortable with. And if that's the case, why didn't they just go to the WhatsApp and interact with people? So it's just they learned the hard lesson that investing in the app just to interact with farmers, that was not really very smart investment at the beginning. So just going from the beginning, the technology is not always a solution, so it shouldn't be really supply driven. Just listening to farmers and co-designing a solution to address the specific problem that your users and farmers in this case are facing, that's really critical. So we see this kind of trend keep coming up. The developers are more tuning into human-centered design approach, so prototyping lots of different prototype solutions, including including tech and mobile and very tech savvy, but also very low tech. It could be radio, it could be just pen and base, it could be just cell phone, just conversation. So many different solutions to be tested.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. You know, it has to be tailored to what the capabilities are, to what the preferences are, to what works best. I think, you know, you mentioned radio, for example. Radio is still a very powerful conduit for sharing information and engaging farmers in lots of different venues. There's no doubt about it. I want to put you on the spot real quick, and then I want to turn to Lynn. Is there any particular technology you've looked at or type of project that you found was particularly successful or seemed to really connect all the dots in terms of introducing tech to rural smallholders that we might want to highlight? Or nothing?
Yeah.
Was there nothing that did that?
Well, no, I mean, there are many exciting possibilities, especially a lot of citizen science projects, citizen science programs that could be conduit to introduce very low tech, low cost, for example, sensor devices. I think previous presentation also mentioned IoT devices. I mean, the cost of them are cheaper and cheaper, and that they are also getting more and more powerful, and that will be a really good way to introduce like youth and even women, and I mean, to see what kind of potential technology can bring to their livelihood, that they can be using those devices to collect like water quality or, you know, soil water content, and even measuring weather and kind of understanding what will be the future weather condition for next few days and things like that. So I mean, there are lots of programs and educational and opportunities using these low-cost sensors embedded in citizen science programs. I'm quite excited about seeing more opportunities to introduce those.
Yeah, that is very exciting. I think sensor technology is really taking off to the extent that we can really help farmers, and we've seen this burgeoned in the United States and Western countries. Obviously, that can be a huge benefit in terms of productivity and anticipating conditions for growing and other things. Thanks again. I'll get back to you. I'm going to go to Lynn now. Lynn Pinto, welcome. Now, from what you've heard, obviously you're a service technology provider, and I think a key question that's come up from the audience as well as generally is sustainability, right? Assuming that we can actually interest farmers and value chain actors in technology, and that they actually want to use it. How do we ensure that it's a sustainable system? Why don't you tell us a little bit very quickly about what Cropin provides in terms of products, and then maybe try to address that question perhaps from an example of the kind of work that you do. Go ahead, Lynn. Thanks.
Sure, Peter. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on this webinar. Maybe to start off with, my name is Lynn, and I'm the Strategic Account Manager at Cropin. And as you can see on my screen, in my background, it says Cropin Cloud, and Cropin has very recently launched the first ever ag cloud in the world. And what that means is we have a suite of applications that, you know, we've been working with HarvestPlus so far. So we have a farm management system, we have the crop intelligence tools, and we have kind of embedded that with the data hub, which is basically a form of a platform where you can integrate different solutions. You know, Jawoo and Thandiwe spoke about sensors, IoT devices, that we have the ability to integrate IoT devices or ERP platforms And then of course we have the crop intelligence bit, which is, combining remote intelligence, that is the satellite information, weather data, all of that, process and give interesting insights based on the data that's being captured on our tool. So that's a little bit about Cropin, what we do. So I think to kind of answer your question about sustainability, we'll start with, just an example of, I see it in two ways. Starting about the first thing, I think, first is we start with capturing information. One is, we are profiling the farmers. We have the field officers going and reaching out to the farmers. And when it comes to remote areas, our applications work offline as well. So we don't have that kind of network access coverage kind of issues. So you're able to reach and access a lot of areas because of this. Once we profile the information of the farmers, we capture the crop information. Once the crop information is captured, we kind of configure the package of practices. Jenny kind of interestingly showed a slide about standards and certifications. This is where we kind of configuring that information to ensure that tomorrow the farmers are complying to these standards. And then once we capturing all data, we have everything on the platform. We have the yield and information, etc. And to bring about the point that Thandiwe mentioned, that when your access to market as a sole farmer, when you're going to sell your produce, you're going to face a lot of challenges. Your negotiation power is very low. So we are trying to bring that concept of collectivization, wherein you have all the farmers' information, you put together that crop level produce and you sell to the buyer, and you increasing your profit. So when we're trying to kind of incorporate that concept here, you're increasing the farmers' independence, you're increasing their earnings, and eventually through that, season on season, they have better earnings because of the insights that we've been able to provide on field to take better decisions on field, and eventually give them that independence to even purchase the technology going forward. It's of course going to take time.
So just to break in, just to be blunt, I think that's fantastic. So who pays, right? Are we looking to the farmer to pay for this? Is it something that's really accessible to the smaller farmers? How do we make a sustainable business model out of these kind of technologies? And I want to ask the same question for a couple of our other vendors as well after you answer. Thank you.
Of course. So it's all about volume, right? So we're not talking about 10, 20 farmers. We are talking about millions of farmers. We have a project right now where we digitized about 2 million farmers' information. We're aiming to another million by the end of this year. So when it comes to volume, we have more farmers on the platform. They are able to put together that amount and be able to afford technology. Now, talking about that, how are we getting 3 million farmers on board, considering the remote access to rural areas, etc.? We have created a sort of a business model where we have, I think Thandiwe mentioned, having a community leader. So what we do is have a lead farmer, and we set up a train the trainer sort of a system where each person that's being trained by Cropin goes forward and trains another 20 people, and those 20 people train another 20 people, and they are working very closely with the farmers. And these people have access to phones, so they are able to get the advisories that Cropin is able to disseminate and spread this message across. So that's the way, that is one aspect of building sustainability that we're looking at. As I said, of course, it boils down to volume of farmers. And the second aspect is, we're bringing in different stakeholders that derive value out of this value chain. For example, we have the farmers, and then we have Cropin, which is the technology partner. And Cropin has the ability to integrate with perhaps a marketplace or, a food processing company. So we bring together different stakeholders who see the value and are willing to invest in such a setup. So, that of course it's challenging to bring people or bring these players on one platform. It takes a lot of program management efforts for this, but that is another aspect where we see we can kind of bring that level of sustainability.
Thank you. Let me try to bring in Ben. Are you you're there? Ekanikpong. I wondered if you
Yeah,
might have
yes, I'm here.
I wanted any comments about this sustainability issue. How do we create a good business model for you know, some of these technologies? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, we've sustainability plan we've had in place actually now is supporting these farmers to produce more, and we also bring in the climate smart agriculture to support these farmers. And you also know that the new improved biofortified crops, they yield more, and they're also disease resistant and weather resistant. So it's really supporting some of the farmers that we're harvesting like 3 tons per hectare. And you have these biofortified crops going for like 6-7 tons per hectare and fast yield instead of 6 months, some by 4 months you are getting it. So it's in a way really supporting these farmers. So it's also building their interest, supporting their livelihoods, and also ensuring that they put their kids in school and also have a better livelihood.
Mm-hmm. So is it, are we looking at a fee-based model here where the—
Right. Yeah, there's actually a fee-based, and for example, if you harvest your crop, instead of your crop curbing the post-harvest loss, staying with you and rotting, we connect it to market for just a token of small fee percentage. So the farmers pay a percentage, while the buyers also pay a percentage. So that's where the business model works.
Okay, and Morup, do you have any comments on this from your end with your product? Morup, are you there? Not sure he's available. That's okay. While we wait for him, I'll go back to the panel, because I think another issue, and again, I want to get back to the women issue, but I want to ask this first. Another issue is about data. Okay, both in terms of quality of the data that's collected, you know, how easy it is to get data about farmers, and also in terms of managing that data, you know, privacy. So the first question I want to throw out, you know, maybe Thandiwe first. You know, from your perspective, from the farmer perspective, how willing or able, or you know, are farmers? Do they generally, will they have trust when there's technology vendors or others that are asking them for information about what they're doing, about their crops, about their productivity, etc.? Are they generally willing to share this information? Is there wariness? You know, is it reliable? Any thoughts about that, Thandiwe?
So in terms of us rural women farmers embracing digital technology, we have been seeing some few farmers who are using digital technology, and we also have some few of our members who are also using smartphones. But there's a lot of information that is going in and out in terms of safety, security of farmers' information with these digital apps, with these people who are using technology, the tech safe. Because, for example, we have seen many farmers losing their produce to conmen, to con people. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in terms of raising awareness, in terms of digital security, because as it is, we are not safe giving all our information. We are sort of protecting it and not giving full information. For example, in terms of what tonnage are you expecting, we can't give all that information for fear of losing our crops to unscrupulous people. So I think for us as rural women farmers, we still need a lot of training. In terms of security, also need a lot of training on how to safeguard our produce, our information. Yeah.
I agree. And if, you know, in another area, which is not really agriculture, but I'm familiar with the financial inclusion area and, trying to promote financial services tools and things like that. Their biggest concern right now is security and wariness about scams and things like that. And it's something that they're trying to address, straight on. But back to this data issue, I don't know, Jawoo, if you have any thoughts about this from your research in terms of, willingness or ability to share data and whether or not that data is, is accurate and how we confirm it. Please go ahead. Right.
So, this is another very difficult challenge, and you fully understandable concerns from both sides. Through the COVID, early days of COVID, a lot of medical research has, the leapfrog by sharing all these potentially sensitive patient data that included all the comorbidity, weight, height, and sometimes even other disease is super sensitive data. But the way medical community kind of got around was developing a secure platform where nobody actually access raw data, but they can still analyze or kind of apply algorithm on the data and only access the result of the analysis. And there are technologies, it has been actually around, it's not a new technology. Technology has been around in medical field already, so that when COVID came up, they were able to quickly mobilize the technology to put all the research community globally to work together. I think that kind of innovation could really happen in agriculture and protecting farmers' data and granular data. There are data wallet applications out there. Some of them are even using blockchain and distributed ledger to track who is accessing my data and how they are using it and things like that. And some countries, like a European Commission, for example, has been mandating people to use those kind of technology so that everyone knows who are using my data and how. So yeah, that's kind of another extreme technology solution to address the concern. But on the other hand, I also see the other part of argument that sometimes we might overthink. And if you are really in the field, if you're not foreign, if you are in the community already working with farmers, it's not that you need to ask farmers for information and sensitive data. You kind of know what is the situation, what is the most challenging condition, then actually you can, again, involve them and participatorily and design and develop solution together. So that's another more kind of organic way to address their concern. It's not like you are seen as taking your data away and make your own profit. You are already in the community, you are in the value chain, you are working together. And if you are still not in the community, you work together with people already embedded and trusted intermediary as a partner to address that. So I think there are many ways that we are still learning the best way to address the concern.
Thank you. Lynn, any last thoughts about the data question?
Sure, Peter. So how we would ideally look at it is, I've been working with Jenny on one of the projects in Zimbabwe. This is where we kind of require, government support, support of different organizations. One is we don't directly go to the farmers, one by one because of that weariness. We create that community engagement. We get one other community leader to start engaging with the farmers, inform them of what are the different actions we are going to take, how is the entire process going to follow, and we build that trust there. So I believe that would ideally be a good approach to take here.
Yeah, I think trust building is a key issue as well, no doubt about it. It takes time. You got to deal with the right people, make sure that there's buy-in. And again, looking at things from a demand side, demand-led process, no doubt about it. Believe it or not, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to give Thandiwe a chance to just weigh in, obviously, again, on the gender issue and reaching women. I wonder if there's any sort of key lessons that you might impart on us from your experience in terms of maybe some key challenges that we need to think about going forward. To make sure that we are engaging women in this process.
I think that the first issue is to acknowledge and accept that women, we constitute the bulk of the farmers. We are the tillers of the land. And the other issue is that as women, we're still lagging behind in terms of access, control, and ownership of land. And we also need support on that one. And then the issue of access to digital security. We still need a lot of information, it was well mentioned that the issues of trust are very important. We need to learn bit by bit, and at the far end, you see us trading very well in this field. So we still need a lot of training in terms of use of the digital apps, and we also need a lot of maybe sharing, us visiting to some countries which are already using these apps and see how they are benefiting. And also the issue of network coverage is also very important. We also need to engage the service providers so that we have proper and good network so that we do not lose out. Yeah, thank you.
Peter, you're on mute.
Thank you, Lynn. Technological problem. Yeah, we're about out of time. I just wanted to wrap up. I wanted to thank all the speakers and the panelists for some excellent sharing here. We've learned about, great technologies that are being developed. It's a very fast-moving sector, and there's so much potential there. But at the same time, we've also highlighted the fact that we need to face some of the challenges as well, be it gender, be it privacy, be it accessibility, sustainability. And we're going to continue this discussion through our work, obviously through HarvestPlus and our partners, but more generally in the global development sector. I also wanted to thank all of our attendees who joined us and for asking so many great questions. Just to let you know that we will be sending all the registered attendees a link to a recording of the webinar, as well as links to the presentations that were provided. So again, thank you to everyone. And like I said, we are going to continue this discussion in future webinars and events, and we look forward to talking to everybody in the future. And please feel free, if anybody needs more information, to contact us. Very easy, harvestplus@cgiar.org. That's cgiar.org. Just drop us a line and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions. If we didn't get to any of the questions in the Q&A, we will respond to you directly via email. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day or evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Everyone, bye-bye.